Yeah.
All right, cool. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings and salutations.
This is Wawa.
And this is D. And this is
Black Meets World. I just want to set the tone and let you know that D cursed me out solidly in front of company about 5 minutes ago.
No, it was actually
for our
2 hours ago.
I did apologize in advance to our guests.
Okay. I did cuss you out, but it was around 6 o'clock. It wasn't just
She just
now.
said she hated me for having extra company because you know
That
how she
is not-
feels. But we can go ahead and introduce our
Today
guests.
we have a very important guest with us. Not that our other guests aren't important, but today we have a very special, important guest. We have Randi Gloss with us today. Woo! If we had like some background, like cheers.
Ow! Sound effects. That's all I got.
So, Randi.
Hey.
Hey, girl.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you for joining us on this very late evening
Sure.
on a Friday night as you just got in town. We're very thankful for you to join us.
Just got here, fresh off the bus, and here we are.
Awesome. But yeah, thanks again for joining us and being our guest. Super excited to have you. We also have one more guest in the room.
What up? I'm nameless. You never know who I am.
Perfect. Nameless.
Our nameless friend in the corner.
have Nameless
also is in here. But yeah, we can kick it off. Go for it.
So, this is really funny, actually. Randi and I ran into each other last weekend in D.C. You know, it was one of those Friday nights where you just need a break. And
Okay.
so we ran into each other at Rose Bar, which was great. And I looked up and I'm like, I think I know that hat. And I was just like,
And I forgot it, and I was really upset.
oh no.
Because I was going to wear it tomorrow.
Well, I wrote in my notes, I was like, hey, I said to one of my friends, like, I think that's Randi Gloss. And she was like, it is. I was like, okay. So I walked over her, like, having the conversation in my notes on my phone in the club.
Word.
Yeah, good times. So we
It
thought,
was funny because I was like, when you texted me or emailed, I was like, is that the girl that I met? And I was like, I didn't meet anybody else that I didn't know that weekend.
Mhm.
And so I was like, it has to be her.
Yeah.
It has to be her.
yeah.
So
So we definitely,
So this hat, can you explain the hat for those who are not as familiar?
the hat is just like a wide brim black hat.
it's like
And it's kind of like my, like, I don't know, my
Signature.
cape or something, because I've never had short hair before, and I was like rocking like a fade or whatever for a few months, and then I cut it all back off around New Year's, and so I have this awkward like baby fro
I love it.
situation
It's
happening. I feel like a Gerber baby, and and so I usually wear some sort of hat, and that day it was that hat, and I'm very sad that I did not.
what made you
have
cut
it.
off all your hair?
I actually broke my collarbone in a biking accident in June. So
Shit, I didn't expect it to go.
Right, like
to
I
take a
just
turn.
thought it was going to be like, oh, like I would decide to go
I just
natural.
knew, you know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I had like
Oh.
really long braids in at the time, and then I just broke my collarbone, and then I couldn't do my hair because my arm was in a sling. So
Gotcha.
yes.
Damn.
Wow.
Well, you
I-
look well now.
you.
You look great, girlfriend.
Right.
I like the baby fro. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think the baby fro is cute.
It's okay.
Okay.
She's
It
like,
keeps like the creepers away, you know, because they're not like, ooh, girl, let me touch your hair.
Oh yeah.
There's no hair to touch. Boo.
Oh
gosh.
the creepers that come for our nameless friend in the corner
Oh, yeah,
with her long hair.
It's
Cut
just,
it off. Taking your sand
Yeah.
accidents, I'm going to
Like
cut it
that.
off.
It's just so long. And
It's so
lovely.
long, right?
Too long.
I was looking and I was like, that's all
Her
right.
hair.
yeah, it's hard though in this city. Like men feel the need to.
Regardless, you can have the shortest hair, you can have the longest hair.
That's
One
true.
man is one comment.
This city is nasty. I actually went to lunch with a male friend of ours that is like 6'5", and we walked down the street, and I was like, you know, I'm just so grateful that you're here. It was like a street where there's all this construction, and I was like, man, I appreciate you. And he was like, why? And I'm like, because you don't understand the level of catcalling that would occur if I was walking down the street like sans headphones. You don't get. He was like, I kid you not. He said, that's still a thing. I was like,
What?
the male privilege is
You're
just
human.
right. Like you don't. Oh, okay. You're just not. You're not privy to it. Okay. So anyway, Miss Randi. So can you like tell us, I guess, a little bit about
Who you are?
yeah.
What you do? all
That's
that
such
good
a broad question.
That is a broad question. Let's start with your clothing line.
Okay.
Yes.
What about it specifically? Or
I can't with you. I can't with
for
you.
listeners, okay, if listeners have never heard,
If listeners have no idea who you are or what your brand is, what would
Okay.
you say?
Well, it's always evolving, but when we started, it was really just a way of continuing to memorialize Black men and women who've been killed from police violence and racial brutality. So it's kind of simple, but now we do events that are really focused around creating a sense of community. We put out we have our own podcast. We do some video pieces. I speak places. So I get to talk to adults and make them uncomfortable. I guess I'm an adult too.
I feel
and
that.
High school students. This past Saturday, I was speaking to foster care students in DC who, like, in between the ages of 13 and 18 about colleges and careers. So that was really cool to be able to do that with DC Child and Family Services. So a lot of different things, but I guess ultimately, like, Gloss Rags is just a catalyst for social activism and discourse.
Dope.
Right.
Super dope.
So how did you become so passionate about this? Like, what was the trigger for you that started you, like, to get involved or decide to make a clothing line or anything like that?
Well, my mother is a teacher, and so I think whether she homeschooled my brother and I for 1 year when I was like in second grade though, but it was, I don't know, it was kind of like unintentional Saturday school. Like, she would just be like, yeah, let's go to a museum.
Yeah.
It would be like a Black museum.
Mm-hmm.
And so she would always find a way to teach us about our people and our history and our culture from a very young age. So then when I think I was 14, I learned about Emmett Till. And around the same time that he was when he was murdered. And so I think that had a significant impact on me. And that was when I was in 8th grade. And so there was that. But then with the shirt, it started as a sign with the first 5 names. So Emmett, Amadou, Sean, Oscar, and Trayvon. And then at the bottom, it said more than just Black faces and tragic spaces. And so I carried that with me at the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, which was in August of 2013. And then people just kept stopping me, like, every 10 feet or so, asking to take a picture of the sign. So then I got home and I sketched it out on, like, a little sticky note. And then I think I told my mom that I thought it could be something more, that it could probably be like a t-shirt or something. So then a few months later, I reached out to one of my mentors and was like, I just need some money for some shirts. And he was kind of like, what? And so I had to, like, find a way to make a business plan of sorts, like probably like 4 asterisks after that. And then the first time he said no, and then the second time he ended up paying for my first 100 shirts.
Cool.
Wow. I sold them at Broccoli City Fest, and then we sold like 45, I think, the first day, and then the rest online when it was back in our big cartel days. That sounds like a lot, like way more than what it is. And then we sold through the first 100 by May of 2014, and then here we are in 2016.
I definitely got mine in like 2014. Like, I remember, I got this one early because I wore it last year to our Black Alumni Weekend at UVA, and everyone was just like, where'd you get that shirt? Where is it from? Like, how did you? I was like, oh, I don't know, like Gloss Rags, blah blah blah. And they were all just like, well, who is that person? I'm like, I don't know, it's Randi. Like, I'm like, I don't know. She just made the shirt. Everybody makes shirts. It's like there's so many. So I guess to that point, like, you kind of started before a lot of people, but do you find that you're competing with like the Black by Popular Demand or the Pure Black or any other like shirt brands that are out?
Not really. Actually, I just did a T-swap with Pure Black. And it was really like Precious picture. He took a picture with his mother in his shirt, and then he had on volume 8, which is the sisters, the fallen sisters. And so it was a really cute picture of them on Mother's Day that he shared. But no, because it's like we are very niche, very not niche, but very focused. So it's very specific. It's like Black men and women, police violence, or racial injustice, or like racial violence, I guess. Or I say like trigger happy citizens, basically. So very focused on that, and that's just like our thing. And so there's definitely shirts out with the ampersand on them, but that has been a design or a concept that's been around since 2001. So I've never taken claim to the ampersand.
Okay.
But no, I think it's great that there's so many options. Like not Fila Print. That's their Instagram name. Philadelphia Print Works. They make awesome stuff. And so they did kind of like a intellectual collegiate themed line. So you had like Baldwin University.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I actually met their owner. She's awesome. When was that? I guess in February. We were both vending at a UPenn event for their Black History Month. So that was cool. So I just got to like sit and talk to her. So it's really just kind of like more of a community of support. And because we all want everybody, like we want each other to win.
Right.
So it's not really kind of like competition or anything.
Word. Which I think, okay, so y'all saw the BuzzFeed video, right? The 27 questions.
Your thoughts on the BuzzFeed?
The question specifically about like, why do we have to build each other up in one breath and tear each other down in the other? Like, just hearing you say that means like clearly like these people, everybody's working together. Like,
but also let's never reference that BuzzFeed video ever again because it was so bad. But also it's that notion of because you succeed that I can't succeed, and that whole philosophy of because this one person who looks like me is doing well means that they're taking the shine away from what I can do, as opposed to a collaborative effort.
Right.
If I can be successful and be, wildly like, amazing, why can't you do that? And why can't we help each other? That collaborative spirit. So let's never talk about that BuzzFeed again. But no, I think it's beautiful too. I think we're also in that kind of space where that's what we're attempting to focus on is like, people who do want to like memorialize, people who have been killed, or at least look back at our history and say, you know what, this has not changed. When did Emmett Till get killed? 55. It's 2016, and similar stories are still being told, unfortunately.
So my shirt says Emmett, Amadou, Sean, Oscar, Trayvon, Jordan, Eric, Mike, and Ezel. And so I feel like you guys have a line of stay woke also. Yes. And I feel like my woke moment was Trayvon. Like I remember specifically the light turning on. So what was like, who or what was your, I mean, I know you kind of described how you got into the shirts, but like what was your woke moment? Like, damn, this is some bullshit. Like this something has to be done kind of thing.
I don't know if there is any pivotal moment. I think that the moment when I realized that this was something or like on the road to being far more than what I ever imagined was when the Mike Brown let's change this. The non-indictment for Darren Wilson came out, and that was November 25th, 2014. I remember I just like biked home. My mother was sitting in the driveway, and she like rolls down the window, and she's like, "They didn't convict him," and so then it just like completely like mood changed, And so I went and sat in the kitchen, turned the TV on, and just like kind of watched everything unfold. And then my phone was blowing up. Because what happened was that we ended up getting over 200 orders, like close to 200 orders in a day, which at the time was absurd. And now would still be absurd because we're still, pretty small. But like we were probably averaging anywhere between like 10 to 20 orders a week. So to do 10 times that in a 24-hour period, which is insane. And so, and that had only been just a few, like we added Mike, Ezel, and Eric in August. So, and then obviously just the timeliness, I guess, having just fairly recently added their names, and then the verdict coming out was really pivotal. Because then I stopped, like I was working at a restaurant, I was substitute teaching, and I stopped everything and just focused on glass rags. So that was when I kind of was like, whoa, and then even for my family to see that, like, I went from having like 3 boxes of shirts to like the whole like perimeter of the family room being lined with, like this pristine like pastel yellow couch, and there's just all these boxes everywhere. So
So you said something that kind of struck me, which I kind of found interesting. You said you speak on panels and things like that, and you make people uncomfortable. Like, what are some examples of like what you discuss and that makes people uncomfortable? What's that audience look like?
Well, I think that this shirt in general makes people uncomfortable, and that's really my goal, because I love when I get like a tweet or an email or something like that, and like this woman was like, "Oh, I was just getting dressed after, going swimming." And it was like the YMCA or something. And she was like, and this white woman walked up to me and told me that my sweatshirt made her uncomfortable, and I was just like,
slavery made all of us uncomfortable.
yeah,
So let's discuss.
And so, but that type of things, I love those type of remarks, because it's like, okay, the shirt is still effective in many ways. But a couple weeks ago, I was in Milwaukee for their Young Professional Week, and I taught a workshop called "Who Cares About the Water Cooler?" and it was about having meaningful conversation at work. And so we started off by, well, first everybody had like a little sheet of paper, and it was just like write down something that you wanted to talk about at work, but you didn't feel comfortable. So it was everything from like my period to like, Trayvon Martin to marriage trouble, politics, like all these different range of things, and people got pretty specific. So we did that as an icebreaker, and then we jumped into I made a quiz basically, so you got quizzed on on the 17 men on volume 9, and it was like 48%, I think, of people, like that was like the average score. Like literally it was just like, it might be like first question, like, who is Mike Brown? And it would be like 17-year-old unarmed black boy killed by, or it could be like, I would flip it and be like unarmed, armed, might change their age, might play around with the city or like whatever. So it's pretty like straight up. It wasn't like,
and it was 40% like
48% was the average score. So you had
what's the demographic of the group that you were?
It was pretty mixed. Like there was like some black folks in the room. It was pretty majority white, but there were definitely like some of us in the room.
Got it.
And so that was like the average score. And so it was like the 17 plus a question, which was on average, how much older do white people perceive black boys to be? And it's 4.9 years older than what they actually are. So it was an 18 question quiz, all multiple choice, and the average score I think was about 48%. So I know that but I feel like that made everybody uncomfortable, to be honest, because you're like, oh, let me strengthen my black card. Let me go read a book or something. But then we went and just talked a little bit more about why, what the barriers are to having those type of meaningful conversations at work, what holds us back, and things like that. And so it was it was really good. I got some really good feedback. Yeah, it was. I love doing stuff like that, because it's just kind of like, us as humans, as individuals, like we all are still very much works in progress. And so, no one's perfect. And
I think that's fundamental for like any business.
Well, and also I think it's interesting because that's how our podcast got started. Like we initially centered it around work stories.
Yeah. And
like things that we experience
being young women of color.
Right. Yeah. And like not being able to talk about. Like even little things like, where like lemonade was a big topic a few weeks ago, and a lot of like the white men in my office were like, oh, well, I wasn't the audience for that. I'm like, what do you...
Just like the SNL skit. Everything's always for us.
Right.
It's like...
I don't get it.
Right. So I get mad about it.
Right. And upset that it's not for you. So I find that really interesting, because I've experienced that. I have like the I love my blackness in yours shirt. I have a Trayvon shirt with his picture on it. Yeah. And then whenever I wear people just will stop like straight up in the street and just be watching, or like ask me about the shirts, or, why am I wearing it? Even, I wear it like outside of, the regular like Black History Month or one of those days. And so there's always questions around, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And definitely like the discomfort that you can feel coming from other people.
But interestingly enough, that happens with like Stay Woke too. Because I remember I had my hat sitting in my lap. Yeah. And so this white man next to me was like, what does that mean? And so then I went on to explain it to him. But also like the the Ndinker symbol on the sign is a symbol for handcuffs. And so they were introduced into West African societies as a means of slavery, but then also adopted by those same societies for law and justice. So it both represents law and justice, and then also slavery and captivity. And so then there's a proverb that says, you are a slave to whoever's handcuffs you're wearing. And so whether it's like racism, narcissism, sexism, any ism that's floating out there, it's kind of like, well, when you wake up in the morning, are you looking for how many likes you got? Are you looking for that missed call from Bay?
Ooh, that is
deep. Are you looking for that, that email or whatever? Like, what is really driving you, or like, what are you enslaved to or by?
Yeah.
So that's really the concept behind it. So I explained it to them, and it was funny. He's like, oh, yeah. Well. He's like, my daughter's going to Ghana this summer. I was like, that's great. I was like, that's great. Like, you go, sir.
He's like, don't worry about my white guilt right now.
Right. Like,
but and it was funny. What was funnier, though, was that the lady in front of me literally was like looking over her shoulders super dramatically to like listen to the conversation. I was like, there's a pretty large crevice that means that I can see doing all of this. And it was just really interesting. But yeah, like pretty much like, I don't know. I didn't mean to like actually, that's a lie. I didn't mean to make pieces that make people think or ask questions. So I guess I'm doing that pretty effectively.
But I love that because it's like you are an influencer, right? And like your brand of what you represent will draw up conversation, whether it's you wearing it, whether it's, D wearing it down the street, or whether it's like a person with a bigger, audience wearing it. But I think it's important in what you said, because I know I sometimes for just being lazy, like I don't feel like explaining myself to another white person. Like if I don't know you, it's like I don't really have the investment to try and educate you and everybody else on this plane.
It's not our job either.
Right. And it becomes tiresome, but I love and I appreciate the fact that you did go through that exercise, because like the lady looking over the chair, like it's educating people who are not in the demographic, who didn't grow up in a demographic of technology and of exposure to other cultures and races and stuff like that. Not necessarily, but in that kind of culture we have now, where you have the internet, if you want to get a taste of another lifestyle or culture, you can just Google it, or you can listen to different music and you have access to a lot more stuff. But like the older generation, I think the older generation is what I get more like disheartened by, because it's just like those stares and those looks, and we're not that far off from.
We're not.
I think the beauty of the And Counting collection is that I think honestly more people don't ask questions, but like you said, you can Google it, right? So if you're just kind of like, if you don't have like the balls or wherewithal to be like, so who are these people? Right? Then you can certainly Google them like within an instant. And so there's, I'm always like, the stories where people ask are always very intriguing. Like I know there's this guy, it was early on, it was 2014. I think he went to Rutgers, I want to say. And he was saying that his professor had asked about, who was on his shirt, and he explained it to him. So a lot of different conversations that happen. But again, even if it's not someone being like, hey, who are these people? Then it's like they'll make a mental note and then do a little research. So whether it's a conversation starter or something that piques your interest to a point where you do find yourself Googling it, then, or like that silent guessing game where it's like someone's like staring and then you see them staring and then look away and then look back and like squint a little bit and then you're just like, right, that's a good question, bro. Like it's okay. But
well, I taught in high school for 2 years, and I feel like a lot of my kids didn't have a clue what was going on in the scope of the potential that they had, but also just like Black Lives in America and all that. And so I wore the shirt one day and I just said to them, like, how many of you know who all these people are? And they were all like, we know Emmett Till and we know Trayvon, but like everyone else was kind of shaky. And, I just said to them, like, I get that it's hard to be in high school and go through all the stuff you're going through in high school and be tuned in, but like these people are your peers. Like, it's not like we're talking about somebody who Emmett is far away, but at the same time, he is you. Like, this gap of 60 years is almost irrelevant because we're looking at the same name almost on every shirt based on the circumstance around which, their deaths occurred. So I think it's great, like, definitely conversation starters for young and older people, just because you have, like, such a wide range of material to work with and have to explain.
And on a bigger scale, like, there's not enough people like us, you know what I'm saying, like, talking about these things. Like, if right now we went to high school right now, I wonder, because I don't think I learned about Emmett Till in school.
You did, girl. No?
For me,
don't think I did. Did you?
Not in school?
No. I'm sorry, you grew up in the Northeast, let's be very clear. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. That's fair.
When we learned about the Civil War, I don't remember losing. I just know that we went to the Confederacy. We went to the Confederacy Museum.
Oh, no.
It's called Cyclorama. There's still people in my class who wear, like, Confederate flags. What is the fatigue? What's the joint with the hunting?
Fighting.
And where did you grow up?
In D.C.
Okay.
And around. I moved a lot.
Okay.
But, yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, so in 8th grade, it was Miss Barlow, Jewish lady. She's the only teacher teaching civil rights in the county, in Montgomery County. And so, but the funny thing was, I had seen part of the material was Iceland Prize, but I had seen it when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So I fell asleep in class, and she was like, I had to call your name 3 times before you responded. So, like, on the strength of, like, you have to respect my class, I got kicked out. But I remember the day when we were watching the Emmett Till video, and I was awake for that, obviously, but I had also seen it prior. So,
yeah.
But I think, in the same way that, like, I taught freshman English for 3 months 2 years ago, and, like, they didn't know barely anybody knew who the Fresh Prince was. So, I can't expect them to know who, these people are.
Yeah.
So because it's really the education system.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not about necessarily, like, the level of wokeness, like, as a teenager, that's kind of like an extra, I don't want to necessarily say burden, but, like, that's, like,
it's
more
heavy
than
stuff.
capacity,
right. And so, like, if it's, if it's not being taught to you, it's not being taught. And so that's kind of, part of the problem.
So did anybody watch the show Underground?
I love Underground.
So Underground is...
We talked about this. Okay.
Did you watch it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
good.
I heard it's really good.
It is amazing. Really, and the thing that I think it, like, ties into education is because every time I watched an episode, I watched the whole thing. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch, but I felt like somebody Black read, like, the history books that they teach us about in school.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that's all well and good, but I'm going to teach this from the Black lens. And it felt... Hey, New York.
Shout out to our new studio space. I sit up here in, like, the sirens of Harlem and the Dominican bands going down the street. We listening to...
Midtown's finest.
Yeah.
So I feel like Underground...
It humanizes, like, slavery. I'm saying Underground does a good job of making, like, the slave experience, like, it shows, like, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
So it's like you see the people who, the woman who slept with Master and all the offspring that she had, and how, those are in the house versus the other slaves that are outside, and the tension between them.
And they envy the others. Like, the ones in the house envy the ones outside. The ones in the fields envy the ones in the house. Like, and they show just so many family dynamics, and so obviously the premise of the show is like,
it's like Game of Thrones. Like, people get killed.
And there's levels. Like, there's so many levels of storylines too.
You forget there are Native Americans that are still around. Yeah, Native Americans get involved.
There's poor white people in the show. I mean, it's levels.
It's
to
really
shit.
good.
It was amazing. I thought it was one of the better shows, and it's a John Legend produced.
And they have hip hop music throughout the whole. Yeah,
right.
It's really good.
I would like highly recommend it to anybody. I put a bunch of people onto that as soon as I started watching.
I put my coworkers onto that.
Yeah, but you also have to be in the mood. Like, when I first tried to watch it, I was crying within the first 15 minutes of the first episode, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this yet. And then I went, long story short, I got a ticket and I shouldn't have gotten the ticket. And I was like, man, fuck the police.
Oh, yeah.
Let me watch all of Underground right now. And I watched like 5 episodes in a row. It was awesome. I was
It's
like,
so good.
yeah, it was good. But you definitely got to be ready.
I feel like, why isn't there more? It's an uncomfortable conversation, but I feel like there should be more content that is like Underground. Because I know they have like a new Roots movie or show or something with T.I. and like some other like hip hop. I feel like we're going in a direction where it's just like this story hasn't been told in a way that is digestible for like most people. Like I don't know, did you watch Roots growing up? I'm sure. Like
I've seen parts of it.
It's a lot. I mean, it's so.
But it
long.
also was kind of like it didn't really fall in the millennial generation. Like maybe if you're like in the 28 to 32 range of the millennial demographic, then that's something that you definitely have seen.
Yeah.
But for the mid like 22 to 25, I can't say that I saw all of it.
Gotcha.
So Randy and I fall in that category of like it wasn't really. We didn't see every bit of Roots.
How old are you? Sorry,
I'm 25.
Yes, girl. You better be on it.
Yes.
Well, when are you turning 20? Did you just turn 25?
No, I'm like in the middle. I'm November, so I have a little ways. But I was gonna say what about Roots 2 and Underground is that I think that there's like the buzz phrase like change the narrative, blah blah blah, control the narrative. But I really think now it's sort of shifting to owning the narrative. Which is really what I like to say as well, because it's like if we own the stories that we're telling, then it's not a matter of control, because control is like, what do you call it?
Reactive.
No. It's like a very like colonial mentality, control, And so then it's like, and change, you're changing what's already out there versus owning it, where you have ownership. And so we are the ones creating and telling our own stories.
Right.
And so Underground is very much a Black production, Black actors,
and it's
writers.
Told accurately, I feel.
And so that's a huge difference, and it also helps you connect on a much deeper level, because you know that there's the ethos on the back end for you to be able to accept it and to talk about it and grapple with it in a very different way than those like certain shows when they're like, oh, they just try to slide in this like Chris Brown Rihanna related episode, and it's like SVU ain't got no Black writers, so it's just certain things.
I saw that episode too.
And so so things like that where we really have more ownership, and that those type of things make me excited for like what's to come, because I think that there will be more for sure, and not just around like historical topics, because I think at some point we do get tired of like, all right, like how many times we're going to see a slave show, narrative, movie.
But I always see people like, oh my gosh, it's another slave movie. It's always like this like depressing, like, oh, I can't watch it, it's too heavy type of reaction, I feel like, from these types of, like, even like 12 Years a Slave. I can't tell you how many people were like, oh my gosh, it's so, like, I can't watch it. And I
get that though. It depends on
I feel like you should be forced to watch some of
that.
But
it depends on how old you are.
Yes, you. but like an unnamed friend in the room is like, girl, I ain't watching that.
But then
I mean, it just depends on how much how quote woke you are, how tuned in you are, and how much you can take at the time that it's presented to you. So like leading up to 12 Years a Slave, you might have been so tuned into any of the trials going on, like any of the murders, you had enough. Like it's hard to be conscious of the struggle all day, every day, and then go into a movie that is just going to depress you further. Yeah. Like, I watched it because I thought it was relevant. It's a true story, like, it's based on a true story, etc. I think there's, like, value in all of these things, but you do have to be in the right mindset for it.
But also, I think, I was like, I literally just had a whole conversation in my head with myself. What I was originally going to say is that, like, I would like to see more diversity in the type of stories that we're putting out there. So, like, not just a slave narrative. But then I was like, I had actually not known about the specific story that was dealt with the man in 12 Years a Slave. So, like, granted, it falls under the slave category, the slave umbrella, but then his specific story was unbeknownst to me. And so then I was like, I actually retract that statement. But I think, but at the same time, it's like, let's get some, like, Harlem Renaissance period films out, and like some more films from the 70s. Just like, I mean, we've been here since from the jump.
Yeah.
Pretty much from day one. Like, we built this country, so like let's start putting out more films and shows. Like, I would love to watch like a Harlem Renaissance show because it was like popping. Like, there was so much going on.
What's the name of the movie? Cotton Club?
Blues. Oh, I was gonna say, what is it called? Something Blues with Denzel.
What's the one with Eddie Murphy and Richard?
Harlem Nights.
Harlem Nights. There we go.
Harlem
They were
Nights.
at Cotton Club. There we go.
Or even like putting a James Baldwin book to life, like the way he was writing in that time period of Harlem. Like, that would be amazing to just see on screen, I think, if it was done correctly.
But you know what? It's crazy because we talk about this now, right? But like, there's so much opportunity to make content at this point. I feel like we're now at a pivotal point where we're like, all right, now like these big companies who are realizing like, all right, this new generation wants raw, factual information, like Blackish, for example, right? Like they had, right? We are big fans of Blackish, first of all. But like they did a study on like what teenagers like right now, right? And they were like, they love Blackish. It was like, this is across the board, all race, demo, male, female, whatever, right? And I was like, Blackish to me seems like a cool, like, I wish that was my dad. Like, that seems like a cool family. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish Tracee Ellis Ross did roll up, like, being a doctor wearing, like, really, like
a dope maxi dress and
dope
some
maxi
J's.
dress and some J's on. My dad had a full closet sneaker collection, you know, but was still, like, old school parenting, but we still had, like, progressive, you know, behaviors. And they're very much people who look and act like me, is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like now that this like old like generation that is still in power and still is not the majority of the workforce, but still are in the higher positions of, you know, giving the okay on content, giving the okay on certain shows being greenlit and stuff like that. I feel like we're now in a space where the four of us right now could go and make a show ourselves. And truth be told, in a few months, it might get picked up by a big network who at least might find like, oh, this is what people want. This is what people are listening to. I feel like we're now at that pivotal stage where things are taking another direction. It's more becoming, you have more like outlets, like Vice, for example, like Viceland, which is a new network on on television, has very niche content. And that is just an example of how we can start catering to niche audiences like ourselves. But yeah, any more questions?
I don't know. Do we have any more questions?
Like, is there anything that you wanted to kind of like say about your brand or what you're working on? Or
Right. Anything new coming up?
Well, I would first of all, I just want to pay some homage to Mike, who would have been 20 today. And I just started reading his mother's book, Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil, which has the foreword by Medgar Evers' wife, actually.
Wow.
Merle
That's deep.
Evers Williams. And then there's a little bit of a, either the foreword or prologue by Common. And so I literally just started reading it on the way up here, and I'm excited to continue to read that. And I think it's just I'm in love with, like, the cover art is amazing. Like, the portrait is beautiful, the lighting of her is fantastic, of Miss McFadden, and the typography, like, on the front. But then also I'm just very grateful that she took the time to do that, in conjunction with another Black author, female Black author. And I hope that, because I mean, it's just like never easy. It will never be easier to kind of like to have your reality be that your son or daughter is no longer with you because someone literally like stole their life away, you know? Mm-hmm. And so when I think about the families and I think about like not every family has the desire or the wherewithal or the means to have a full-fledged organization, a nonprofit, you know, like there's like the Trayvon Martin Foundation, and they have healing circles for mothers and fathers, and they come together, I think, in February every year, and like are able to just share their stories and grieve. And what they're doing also, I think it's like people don't know enough about what they do, you know, because it's like it's not just Black mothers. It's literally any mother who's lost their child to gun violence, who's under the age of 18. And so she's like Sabrina Fulton has literally met like mothers from Sandy Hook and from like Columbine and, you know, Aurora and all those things. And that again just speaks to a larger context. It's like it's not just like about race, but it's about this country and the laws that we allow that clearly continue to take people's lives each and every day. So there's that, but then it's like, you know, you have families who just don't, like, the grief is too much for them to create a nonprofit. And, you know, to do the traveling circuit and to be
to continually
and you know, the mothers are just like, I just have the utmost respect for them. Like, I remember there's just so much behind the scenes that you don't know, you know, like they will go and be the court support for each other, you know. Like, I remember Trayvon's mom was at the case with Mike Dunn for Jordan Davis, but then when the local media heard, they basically kind of like sequestered her into an overflow room because they said that if she was in the regular courtroom, it would remind people too much of what
as they should, because Jordan Davis was gunned down by a clown girl.
And so, but there's Florida. Just like stuff that you don't know or see or hear about that happens and that they go through, or just seeing them, you know, like Amadou's mom was at Freddie's funeral. Like, I was there, I saw her.
Wow.
Kiatu Diallo, she was out there.
That was 20. It was 20 years
how
different.
Old is she?
Kiatu Diallo, she's in her maybe 50s. I think.
But I mean, like, he would have died in 95, right?
No, it was 99.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was 23, and so she's probably like 50s, 60s. But she was there. You know, they'll that's kind of like a part of their life now is to support each other and be there and stuff. So I just have like the utmost respect. But on top of that, just like for having, you know, taking the time and going through all the myriad of emotions to really sit down and write that book, I can only imagine was like, you know, challenging to say the least. But I'm really happy that she was on Dr. Phil like about a week ago. And that was like the first time that she had really kind of like, it was kind of like a year's worth of silence where she wasn't doing any like public appearances or anything. And but even then she was like, she really didn't say much because she was in tears a lot of the time. Yeah. So everybody in the audience got a copy of her book and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think that that's kind of what was on my mind today is her and her family and stuff. But tomorrow, I mean, Akai Gurley's family is here for the Left Forum, but they're from here, you know. And then Jordan Davis' father is here. Uncle Bobby, who is kin to Oscar Grant, he's here. So there's a big forum here in New York that's happening at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice on Saturday. So I'll be there as well, speaking on a panel. So yeah, I don't know, just the utmost respect.
That's great to know. I didn't know about that.
Utmost respect to all the families and the continued fight.
Utmost respect to you for like knowing all of this information. Like, I feel like this is stuff that I'm aware of. You know, we're aware of, like, we know, but you are sitting here like naming family members and you know, speaking to things that I think people should really be tuned into. So shout out to that.
It's a lot to keep up with, especially with like one of the challenging things is like getting my mind right to wrap around new cases. Yeah. Like the 22-year-old woman who was just like, she got in police custody. She's mother.
This is like this week though, right? Yeah.
I think her name is Nicole, if I'm not. And like, it's just kind of like, you know, it's getting bad when like increasingly more people are talking about it. Because I think like I saw it like it was on Big Boy's Instagram, which is, you know, not like, oh, when's the last time he's taking a stand or anything, but
another one?
Yeah, you know? And so it's just kind of like, that's what's challenging. I'm trying to, because I do want to name her. For me, it's just kind of like, okay, how do I prepare myself for... So her name is Simone Marshall, Walker County, I believe in Georgia, maybe. And so she died in police custody. It said arrested after car crash, never received medical attention. So just kind of like preparing myself to be like, all right, how do I process this? Yeah. You know, do I start my research right away? Or like, you know, there a few months ago it was like Jenna McMillan, and that was a lot. And
so how do you have time to like keep up with all this and also have a day job or whatever?
What is your day job?
I do in-school intervention at a high school in Montgomery County. So it's interesting because it's a primarily well, let's say the majority of students that get put in school intervention, formerly known as in-school suspension, are Black students. Yes, ISS.
Not that I was ever in it or anything.
Okay, girl.
And but a lot of teachers are white, and administration is primarily white. So it's just kind of like this whole like disconnect. Yeah. And I just be sitting in my office like, let me just make it through today, Lord.
Yeah.
I just don't want to go off on a teacher. But so there's that. But I think honestly, for keeping abreast of like what's going on in kind of like the social justice realm, definitely Twitter like is huge. Because if it's like certain people are tweeting about it, then I'll get an alert.
Yeah,
so if it's like DeRay and like
Netta
Pac-Net and like
yeah.
Netta, they all tweet about something, then it's like boop, and I get that alert. So that's kind of like definitely something. But then I also just like challenge myself to pull up articles and just read like every day, for at least for like 30 minutes.
So, quick question. With this, how is it heavy for you to be abreast of all these stories? Is it something that, like, obviously it's something that I feel like we're all passionate about, and especially it's your brand. Is it a burden that falls on you sometimes, just like, oh my gosh, like another story? Or is it like, do you feel empowered by kind of like being able to tell that story and kind of spreading the awareness of like being, because it's you're in an advocate position to help people understand, like, all right, things may not change in my generation, but at least I'm helping push things along.
Yeah.
It
really depends. It really depends. Because, like, I remember, so, like, two kind of separate examples. So, last year, yeah. I think I got a text, and maybe I saw it on social media, but that's what I was going to ask you. Do you know Martise Johnson?
Yeah. So, yes. Martise is a student who was injured at UVA. They, beat him.
Oh, homie who got beat up. Yeah.
Beat up by the UVA police. And that was a really interesting time for me because it was like.
Do you know him? Like, personally? Okay.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we were cool. We're not like best friends, but I know him. Like,
yeah.
Just like, oh, this is happening. We're like a lived experience with somebody. They dropped the charges, and he ended up countersuing them for, like, he had stitches and all this stuff. And
homie's face was bloody. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was really bad. But shout out to him actually because he's graduating, I think, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But like, so that, for instance, one of my neos texted me because she went to school with him in Chicago, and so now I'm getting like all these like pictures that really hadn't hit mainstream media.
Yeah, same.
And then
same.
I'm posting them. And I just remember, like, I had walked into my office, but I didn't even turn the lights on yet. Because I just sat there in the dark, and I was like, teared up, whatever. And I was just like, yo, like, this is just too much. And then, so there was that. That was, like, tough. And then this year, so for February, I did this project where I was writing and also so I would wear a different Ann Counting shirt each day and then write about it on Medium. So sometimes you might hear like from the design side, like why we decided to do a baseball tee, because like I don't like long sleeve shirts, so like baseball tee is like the next best thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then or like like why we stopped doing women's cut shirts, and so now we only have unisex, and just kind of like different parts of the design process or different experiences. So that day, I think I started off and I was like, oh, I thought I made it through the day scot-free. Like, nobody looked at me crazy. Nobody asked me about my shirt. But then my phone went off and there was another name to the hashtag. So my mind is like jumping to, okay, is it officer involved shooting? Like, what's going on? And it turns out that Marshawn McCarroll had shot and killed himself on the steps of the Ohio State Courthouse. And he was, after just having been and accepted an NAACP Image Awards in LA literally like 2 days ago. That was his first time in LA, and he was just really like on the front lines for help, incredibly like instrumental in organizing student protests across the state of Ohio, and it just took a toll on him. And like one of his last statements was on Facebook was like, "I'm sorry, my demons won today. I'm sorry." And then actually Kirby Jean Raymond, who's a Haitian American designer from, I want to say, Brooklyn. He lives in New York. And his brand is Pierre Moss. So he flipped it and used, it was such a crazy show for Fashion Week. So Badu and him co-styled it. And then one of his models was carrying like a sign that said, "My demons won today, I'm sorry." Because the show had already been addressing mental health issues and, you know, pill popping and things like that, substance abuse, whatever, but then included that as well. So that was his second, though, like, foray of including something so like, explicit and timely, because before his first show, it included, like, he had a, you know, kind of like a distress vest that said, "I can't breathe" on the back of it.
Right,
and
right.
He had, like, the Doc Martin-esque looking boots with a bunch of, you know, the victims' names kind of like scribbled on the boots and stuff like that. So he lost a lot of money because of that, because buyers just started pulling out. So he lost like over like, I'm gonna say like over $200,000 in sales because of that. But you know, that was really hard for me, Marshawn, because I'm just like, you know, the fact that it's one thing if somebody else kills you, but then if you're driven to the point where you take your own life because of this, because you're trying to make a better world for Black people and Black boys, Black girls, you know, but then you in turn also become a victim, then that was really hard for me. Yeah. So
I remember the Martise Day, but because every group chat, you know, all my UVA friends were like all these pictures, and everyone was like, here, I was there, here's what happened, or, you know, I talked to him right after, or I'm his roommate. You know, it was literally everybody I knew had some story. And I remember coming to work and just like, I just didn't want to talk to anybody. And, you know, it was one of those days where you just didn't want to speak. And everybody was just like, you know, it's regular BAU. And I'm just sitting there like, yo, I need a minute. Like, I need to go somewhere where nobody's talking to me. And a couple of my, like, Black coworkers were like, yo, you know, homeboy, like, blah, blah. I was like, yeah. They were like, yo, this is serious. And I was like, yeah, this is, and I don't want to be here today, but, like, I don't know how to take a Black, you know, mental health day. like, you know, I'm sorry I can't work while Black today. Like, I gotta go and just chill. So, I totally understand, like, where you're coming from in that vein. And that was a good question. Let's see.
And then the last question, what do you do for fun?
Go to Rose Bar. No, I was actually like never go to Rose Bar. It was like my friend's birthday, and like they were supposed to have a table. They weren't even there, and so we were just like in Rose Bar, and I was like, I mean, I guess since we're here, you know, but it's really, I just do a bunch of random stuff. Like we went to King's Dominion the next day.
It's a music park, right?
Yeah, it was just like so random.
I saw your Instagram, the squid head thing or something. That was funny.
We like wear squid hats and I don't know, just like random stuff.
Cool. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
That's good. You need everyone needs an outlet.
That's dope. The last time I went to Rose Bar, this is a nice transition. It was Centennial. Hey, Soror.
Hi.
Hey, girl.
Hey.
Yes. That's the last time I was at Rose Bar.
Yeah.
Circa 2013. Yes.
It was, I can't remember the last time I was. It's like, I don't know, the last time I went to Rose Bar was a long time ago. So, yeah.
That's so funny that you remember that. I mean, it's specific. That's why you remember. But like, it was 3 years ago. I can't remember what bar I went to 3 years ago.
What was Centennial? And I had to do like, how many years after 19? Oh, maybe 2013.
Okay, well, I think like
this was dope.
Yeah,
I'm still like so excited that you're here. You came like fresh off like travel and joined us. Please plug everything that you do.
Okay.
So
I feel
folks
like I
can
have
follow.
to do this because like we didn't have sound effect before, so
Yo, I'm sorry we didn't have alcohol. Usually, like we are.
this is fine.
It's lit.
Yes.
Libations
but like this was a good sober talk. I think
That's true.
It was very good, like constructive. Sometimes we get a little out of hand.
it's something. Yeah, I've never really drank on a podcast.
So
I
much
think we
fun.
all like
Next time you come back to New York,
in heaven, like
love that. Listen,
I like that. See, and
next
next time
time-
because we started drinking before I even knew like
we
about
were
another
drunk
round.
on our podcast from day one. But I will. Next time you come
But
to
we
New York,
do love another round.
right? Next time you come to New York, we'll pour up a little bit.
But yes, let's see. So basic social media. If
Yes.
you want to follow us on the Twitters, it's just Gloss Rags, and mine is just Randy Gloss. And then same on Instagram, Randy Gloss. There is no Gloss Rags Instagram. We own it. We just don't use it. And Facebook is Gloss Rags. If you happen to be in DC for Labor Day weekend, we have our monthly Talk About Whatever You Like series that's called In Combo. So we meet up at In Pizza, which is one of my favorite pizza spots in DC at 10 a.m. And we just chat about whatever, and then we have free pizza. So shout out to them. So that's like That's May 28th. And then
Memorial Day.
You said Labor Day. Oh, okay.
I've been doing that. I don't know what's wrong with me.
No, it's
the
beginning and ending of like the season.
Yeah, okay.
And then let's see.
The website?
June glossworks.com/events. June 25th. There's an amazing play that's running May 30th through June 26th called An Octoroon, about a woman who she's not passing, but her lover thinks that she's white. And then there's also the slaves on the plantation who are just like, it's really dope because basically like it is in slave times, but they are allowing the slaves to speak in like it's 2016. So it's a really fascinating play.
Dope.
And so I'm actually hosting the panel with April Rains, who started the Oscar So White hashtag. She will be there. We have John Gillespie, who was one of the student leaders at Towson for the Occupy Towson movement. Shannon Wallace, who is an amazing photographer and activist in Baltimore. And Van Newkirk, who is a staff writer at The Atlantic. So they'll all be there for the panels at 1:30, and then the matinee is at 3 o'clock. But it's an amazing show, and if you go, again, glassworks.com/events, there is a promo code to get tickets to the show. The panel itself is free, so you can just roll through for that. Lastly, in July, if you want to come tie-dye shirts with gloss rags, we will have, it's called Dab and Dye.
But she dabs.
How does she dab?
It's on Sunday, July 10th. There's 2 to 4 and 4:30, 6:30. So we'll have some tunes. We'll have some white shirts that you can tie dye, either Stay Woke or And Counting. And it's gonna be a fun summer.
So cute. I love it.
That was
come find us.
Yes.
Be our friend.
Wow, we can't.
Walk
Thank
up to me
you.
in Rose Bar.
Word. Spot the hat.
And tomorrow you're speaking on the Blavity conference.
Well, I'll just be there. I'm just there for support.
Cool.
For support. My girl Netta speaking. At 10:45. So be there. And
what's the name of it? Empower
her. Empower her 16. Yeah, is the hashtag. But I will be speaking at the Left Forum.
Dope. Yes.
Yes. I think
it's
later in the day. It's like, I think my session's at 5 or 5:10.
Okay.
So it's a later panel because there's so many. So like I know that Akai's family, they have a session at, I want to say 10 and 12, and then Mr. Davis and Uncle Bobby are I think around like 2 or 3, and then I'm at 5. So it's a long day, but it'll be nice.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, we can't thank you enough for like hopping off the bus and hopping in here with us. This has been probably one of our most awesome episodes, in my opinion.
I agree.
I love this. And follow Randi, but follow us.
You can find us on Instagram, black_meets_world.
That.
You can find us on Facebook, Black Meets World. You can also email us at blackmeetsworld@gmail.com. And we also have the Twitters as well, Black Meets World.
Yeah, let us know how you feel about this episode. Also, go buy yourself an And Counting shirt. They're awesome and dope. Also, stay woke. You can hashtag that and also wear a hat, too.
Bless y'all. Bless up.
Bye.
Peace.